Good evening. We're here at the Admin Building Board of School Trustees Public Works Session. It's Tuesday, May 26th, 2026. It doesn't say it on the agenda, but let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Memorial Day.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to you, Laura.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Leslie. We are back, of course, for our favorite thing, strategic planning. So thank you all for taking the rainy evening tonight to dive into this with us all. The first thing I want to call attention to is what you have in front of you. So these pamphlets of what you're seeing in front of you, these are sample strategic plans. This is actually from Beech Grove and one from Center Grove. And the reason I am showing those are probably the most similar formatting to our plan after we have walked through this process. And I know that, again, strategic plans and planning is not everyone's kind of forte. This may be the first time we've been into this, so I wanted to make sure you had some examples of what we are working towards. And we are very close to producing exactly what you are looking at. So you can look through those at your leisure. But the biggest thing I wanted to call out is just how simple and easy to digest and read both plans are. This has been some common discussion in our directional team meeting with Kim and Jeremy, and of course Leslie being part of, is that we wanted this to be something that a parent could look at and they could digest it. We're not losing them on page 26 of a 42-page plan, that they are able at a very easy glance look at what the focus of the corporation is. And so again, this is Beech Grove and Center Grove, so not too far from us in our area, but really great standout examples of what you want a K-12 strategic plan to look like. And we're going to break down in comparison to ours and what we're working towards. And any questions on what you're looking at on some of those examples? Does that fit in the direction that you thought we were heading towards? Do we like the feel of that? Anything as you're looking through those?
Are you talking about the ones that you gave us from other schools or ours?
Yes, not ours. The examples of Beech Grove and Center Grove. We will talk through our packet.
What I would say is this is too busy for me.
Too busy? Which example are we looking at? So that is Beech Grove's? Okay.
Just like here, 5 schools, 1 family, vision, mission, belonging, community. I don't know what's what. Like I feel like, at least from the way we did ours, maybe it's just the graphic.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
And that's a big piece in it. We are getting to the point where we're moving to that marketing piece. So we want this feedback. We want to see what resonates and what doesn't through. Great point. Anything else that stands out in the positive or potentially, the negative that we want to stay away from as we move into this? And of course, we will keep using guidelines and circling back to these, but as we walk through today, having that kind of next to you, if something comes up, please share that, because again, we are moving to that marketing piece, and we want to make sure that we are capturing exactly what we want in our front-facing part of the plan. Yeah.
So this was just used to introduce the community to the strategic plan?
That is their strategic plan. And we'll take a look in comparison to ours. You can tell, Leslie, just knowing as you've been part of those directional team meetings, they're a little more simplified. We have a little more depth in ours. Again, we said this very early on, there are no rules and there is no right or wrong here. It is just a different direction, but we had actively chose on adding a little bit more depth into our plan. So that's definitely a good acknowledgement that they are going to look different.
I rather like the ones, I kind of agree with Leslie that the first one's a little busy, but the ones on the individual pages, the community engagement and communication, I think, and the other ones after that, I think I like those because they have, the text part is short, but the pictures tell the story.
Absolutely.
And they're impactful pictures. They're real kids, real situations.
Which is exactly what we will want to do. We want to pull internally when we go to our marketing for our plan, absolutely.
Yeah, so this I think that I agree with Leslie, that was the front page is busy. but these individual things are actually done really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other feedback?
They look really nice in color. They do.
They do. I
Yeah.
apologize, my printer was on the
No,
struggle
it's
bus
okay.
today.
No, it's okay. I just was gonna say, I mean, they look really nice. I think, Lauren, I think you're right when you say that they need to be succinct and easy to understand. We want it to be a document that really guides our discussions and guides our work, right? And so if there's too much, that can be overwhelming. If there's not enough, then certainly that doesn't give us good direction. So I think finding that middle ground is really, really important. And I think that the team has done a really good job of that, honestly.
Absolutely.
You've led them well, so.
Well, one of the things we talked about was having language that met parents where they were.
Absolutely.
So I noticed like on the, what do I have, Beech Grove, will emphasize fostering critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and mastery while ensuring pre-K-12 vertical alignment through specifically tailored resources. That's just a lot, and it's too
It's
much.
even hard to say, let alone, yeah, you're right.
It's too much.
And that was a big focus, and we're going to take a look at this through our lens, but that was a huge focus with the directional team of, we would draft something and then we go back in a different lens and we'd say, can we simplify that? Can we find it a better way that we can digest? If I was a parent, would I be able to be receptive to that? So that's a huge piece. And we're still doing that. So as we go through our version of the draft that we have right now, please share with us if you feel that there are some language that could be simplified, so we could get it to that point where we are meeting our parents where they are. That's huge. And an additional piece, again, these look beautiful in color, but they also live out on the websites. And that is what we will want to additionally have. These schools all have strategic plan tabs. There is documents that live out there. There are action plans. There are all the information you would ever want to know about the strategic plan and how you can connect to it lives on the website also. So that will be another component that we are diving into with marketing, is making sure that we have all this that's accessible at any given time. And so that goes hand in hand with those marketing pieces that we're working towards. We're going to circle back to that as we go through today and talk just a little bit more, but I wanted you to know what was in front of you. The next packet, the one that says strategic planning on it, this is what we're going to go through today. I know it's a lot, but we're going to walk through all of this. We're going to break it up with some exercises that we are going to go through. But we're going to talk the process, where we have landed, and kind of what's going next with your assistance today. So as you flip through to the very first page, what I am very proud to show you all is our strategic plan in draft form. Now, we are missing a component, which is your input of our strategies that are board focused, and we're going to work on those today. But what you are looking at on pillar 1, 2, and 3 in the next 3 pages are where we have landed on the most vital pieces that we need to focus on as a corporation. These are the pillars that we are saying, this is coming from your work all the way back last July, the community survey, all of the intentional work with the directional team. This is what has been brought up as the most important focus of the corporation in the form of 3 pillars. Pillar 1, grow and achieve. And of course, I'm going to let you kind of look through all of that. The one piece I want to notate is this is still draft language, right? We are refining this. We're looking through this with different lens. Every time that we get input via the directional team, yourselves, we go back and we're refining that. And now that we have all of the pillars in this draft form, we're doing comparison to make sure that we have it in the digestible form that we just talked about that parents can understand. So those are our pillars. We have grow and achieve. Our pillar 2 is belong and thrive. And our pillar 3 is prepared and life ready. And then what you see under each one of those are the strategies that we believe we need to focus on to make those happen. The only way that we can fully make sure our students in the corporation feel like they belong and thrive is by focusing on those strategies. Those are those big buckets we talked about quite a lot. We have to hone in on these. And beneath that is a statement showing how we believe we can do that. By diving into, things that are focused around staff and data, resources. That's looking at consistent experiences, things like that. We have honed in on those in regards to our strategy statements under each. The last piece of each one of our pillars and our strategies are making sure that we have a board-supported strategy under each of those. And that's what we are going to work on. Because none of these are able to be accomplished without the support of you all in this room. And we know that. That came back on the survey. We found that such vital, important facets that people were wanting to focus on were things that came under your purview, that you supported. So much so that we wanted to root that in each one of these pillars. And so that is what we are going to work on today, is making sure that we pull up that strategy focus, and then of course, pull out those concepts that we can craft that statement out of. And I know this is not the first time you've gotten your eyes on kind of the focus here, but those are our draft pillars and strategies. Anything jump out that you'd like to discuss on those? Jeremy, any context or anything you'd like to add?
I think so. No, I mean, we tried to pull out what we felt like were the most important things that we do as a school corporation, and I think we did a good job of that. I really do.
We try to align language, so you'll notice that even grow and achieve, and then belong and thrive. Last one, prepared and life ready. Life ready we questioned a little bit, but all of those are verbs, and then the we will, that is consistent throughout the whole document, because we wanted to show how we were going to grow and achieve. How are we going to do that for these categories? Just to kind of give some context.
Yes, and it's a great point, Leslie. We went back through, and the last time we brought this to you, they had different titles. We were calling them our working titles. And that's because we went back in and we refined that language, and there was lots of discussion of what is a parent going to see? You know, am I going to be able to have grow and achieve resonate with me? Or we had a pretty advanced title to begin with, and we took it down. Then we took that same lens to each pillar as we went through. Additionally, as that pillar statement, which is right underneath, we changed those all to we believe statements. That was very important to all of the team working on it, is that we wanted to have that be profound. We believe this. I think Kim said it best, one of those, we got warm and fuzzies as we read them, that's what we want. After we did, and we went back multiple times and refined that. Yes, go
On
ahead.
the curriculum, we will implement a guaranteed and viable curriculum aligned across. I think it's important that people understand that the curriculum is really dictated to us by the state.
Sure.
And that's not in here, because when we've had issues a few years ago where we're teaching CRT, which we weren't, and Kim remembers that, and we were having all these people bombarding us about, and we said the curriculum, what we have to teach, the standards are right there. They are set by the state. Our teachers are held to teaching those standards. They are evaluated. You can't have some yahoo going off and teaching what they want to teach.
Sure.
and keep their job. And this was, would you agree with me, Kim? This was a huge misunderstanding, a big issue that we don't set, the local school corporations do not set the curriculum. It's set by the state. We have those standards that we have, whether we agree with them or not, and how to prioritize them and which ones that we have to do. But I think it's important that that's not in our purview, that's something that, those are the limitations that we have, the lines that we have to work in.
Absolutely. And when we drafted this, the one thing we had to keep in mind is this is speaking on what you all can control. We know that we cannot go outside of that, but can we bring things in that would enhance what we are already doing? Is there new types of things? FinMe Math comes to mind on things that we can implement, the things that we can control on that. And so that's a good piece to add in, and we'll put it in our notes, that we may want to structure that language to make sure that it clarifies we have to do that within the constraints that we are given. It's a great point. Anything else that comes up as you look through the pillars and the strategies that we have thus far? I would be remiss if I did not add the tremendous amount of work that the directional team did focusing on this. In the month of April, I think we had a meeting every single week. They dove into the drafting. We had Leslie at every meeting. She was there. It was always our steady, but we had so many individuals that were part of the team that dove in and gave, and of course they're volunteer, tremendous amount of hours to work on the actual drafting of this. And of course you all set the tone for that, with the work that you all provided in July. So I want to make sure I add that, that this is where this is coming from. And this was a large discussion that Jeremy and I have had of making sure that this was rooted in the community and the educators by the feedback, not coming from, administration sitting in an office. This was an entire academic year's worth of work collectively between educators, administrators, community, all of the feedback that came in to bring this up so we had a unified voice. But the directional team was really at the root of a lot of the drafting, so I want to make sure that we acknowledge that. Anything in regards to the pillars, and we're going to come back because we are going to draft those board-supported strategies as we go through.
I did want to say, like on the strategies, that because we had people on the directional team representing all different areas, from some classified staff, some certified staff, obviously, we had different grade levels, so people were looking at it kind of based on, like, how would we explain it to our parents? So like Kathy Ammerman at preschool was saying, she went through a lot of this with a really fine-tooth comb.
Yes.
I feel like Kathy really dove in.
Yes.
And so that was really helpful, and they came up with a lot of the language tweaks. So
That was a tremendous help and exactly what we needed. We were extremely lucky to have that directional team in place when we started this process. So that was that happy accident, but it was wonderful because we know that we have to make this plan relatable in all spaces. It has to be relatable at Little Spartan in the same way that it has to at the high school and the Career Center. And so we were able to look through not only as we're drafting that in maybe the elementary space, but in all of those other areas that has to be able to find a connection. And so they are broad in some areas. We can't say specific, Little Spartan curriculum because we want it to be relatable. So that was a lens that we definitely used also. And the team was vital in making sure that happened. Anything else in regards to the drafting of our pillars and our strategies thus far? Okay. So the next piece of that will go, that goes hand in hand with our strategic plan that you will see is the portrait of a graduate. And so this has been something that we talked about initially, and again, this was not something, this was already in place by the tremendous work of the directional team, which was such a help. But now we're looking at the portrait of a graduate in a different lens based on the work that we brought up in our strategic plan. So on the surface level, we're looking at the language, making sure that we're not, having repetitive. We're making sure that we're speaking in the same terms. We may want to simplify some items, but in tandem with refining the language, we are looking at the portrait of a graduate. But the fantastic part on the next page of what you will see is, and I know you all have heard and seen this before, is when we asked on the community survey about the reception to this portrait of a graduate, 85% said this hits the nail on the head, which is phenomenal. That told us early on that we didn't have to go back to the drawing board on this, that this was going to be a great piece that we can lean into. So our strategic plan defines what the district is committed to. The portrait of a graduate defines what students become with the success of that work. They go hand in hand. That is what we ultimately are hoping that we produce, is that portrait of a graduate for every student that comes out of our doors. And so when we're looking at one, we're looking at them both together as we're walking through this process. So a final portrait of a graduate will go in hand with a packet, just like what you looked at those examples, with the portrait of a graduate included also. Jeremy, I know you spearheaded this. Is there anything you want to add context to the portrait of graduate, kind of now that we're looking through?
No, I think you described it well. I mean, it's obviously after 13 years of education, 13 plus years, what do we want our students to look like and be able to do, possess at the end of that road? And so really this is the nuts and bolts of where it's at. We're hopeful that when your students graduate that they can do these things, right? And so it drives the work, it certainly does. And I like how you described it in terms of the pillars being kind of the way forward to get to this end, right? Because this really is, in terms of our work with the student, this is the end, right? It doesn't end there. We know that it's a launching point to what's next, whether that be enrollment, enlistment, or employment. But for us, in terms of the time we have with our students, this is what we hope for.
Absolutely. If we remember back, we had this discussion, I know it's been several months. Some of the feedback that did come back was more on the visual. We had this discussion, Jim and I, just actually earlier today, but potentially swinging it where real life ready on the physical graphic was larger. That was a lot of the feedback. It was less of the content and more of the visual that went along with it. So that's something we're looking into, as we go through. But in regards to content, it mirrors our plan exactly how we want it to be. And it was verified by that community survey and all the work that we've done thus far. I know we've asked and we kind of talked through it and had opportunities, but is there anything as you're looking now at the portrait of a graduate in tandem with our strategic plans? Does anything bubble up? Any questions? We can talk in silence here.
The only question I've ever had about this is how do we know?
Yeah. And honestly, that's our next step. And so we talked about that a little bit last year as this unfolded before we started the real strategic planning process and building systems of support for these things to live, right? Where we are providing opportunities for students to practice those things. And in some ways, and I hate for it to be too quantitative, but in some ways giving students the opportunity to show that they can do those things, right? We can't say we want students to be an effective communicator, just put them on a computer all day long and expect them not to communicate with each other. Like, it just doesn't work. And so a few of the schools that we visited that do this work really well have had exemplars. Essentially, what does it look like to be in a third grade classroom to do those things? Our preschool, Little Spartan's already done that, so they have a portrait of a Little Spartan graduate, and they put that into practice essentially within their building. Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. So like I said, we have to, the next step is for us to take this to each grade level and drill down deeply into what systems need to be built of support for students to practice, apply, and then of course for us to somehow quantify whether or not they've achieved the standard within each of those areas.
Also, too, I think it's important, and I don't know where it would go, that if this is the portrait of a graduate, then we need to talk to those graduates and find out, this is what we wanted to do for you. It's like getting an evaluation as a classroom teacher at the end of the school year. You ask your kids to evaluate you. What could you have done better? What did they like? What did they hate? What can you do about some of the stuff they don't like? And I think that the student input is just as important as anything else, because these are the kids that are going to be coming out into the world. What did we do right? What did we not do so well? And that's why I think an exit interview type situation would be, look at these things and talk to the kids. And just plain to ask them, do you feel real life ready? If you didn't, why not? What could we have done better? What could we have done better to make you a better communicator? And for some kids, this is going to be very difficult because they're not outgoing. But again, it's a process of preparing these kids, problem solving, how to work in a group. We have things in our curriculum to do that, but how do we know what we can do better till we really ask the people that have been involved in the process?
Absolutely. And this is something that echoes, I know it's a broken record at this point, but our intent here is to make this strategic plan a living document. We don't want it sitting on the shelf in the exact same vein. This portrait of graduate has to mean something to our graduates. They have to be able to say, yes, I feel like I have mastered those communication skills that I needed. I am prepared. Now, it may not be the same for each student, and that's not what we are intending.
No.
But we want them to feel this document in the same way that our parents, our community is resonating with that strategic plan. It has to have that weight behind it. And that's exactly what you touched on. We need to ask them. We need to talk about it. It needs to be common language, that they know that this is what you're working towards. As we're talking about real world skills and experiences, why are we doing that? So that this is how you are able to walk out of our door. So absolutely, we have to put that meaning behind this document the exact same way. Absolutely.
That's good.
Anything else around portrait of a graduate as we go through? Okay, so as we go through and let's talk a little bit about this survey before it leads us to our focus of our exercise today. So what we heard in that community survey feedback, and I know we have seen and we talked through this, but these are our biggest things, that we needed a greater emphasis on real life readiness and practical life skills, top of the leaderboard in our responses. Again, stronger focus on work ethic, responsibility, and accountability, top of the list. More opportunities for hands-on and real-world learning experiences. Obviously, we have addressed that through other things, but just the most recently, we've taken a huge shift as the corporation with the screen time. That was a conversation that Jeremy and I had. So we're addressing this in so many different facets as we move through the process. Increased attention to communication, critical thinking, and problem solving. Those are all back to those real-world skills. And better preparation for all pathways beyond high school. That was very clear in the feedback on the survey, that these were things outside of maybe the traditional path that we think of. But as we work this through, and you can look back and reflect on this, we have addressed these things in our strategic plan as we drafted this. So in regards to Pillar 1, Grow and Achieve, we've acknowledged academic growth in our strategies, strong instruction, and expanded opportunities, to name a few. We pulled those up into our most important focuses in our strategies. Pillar 2, Belong and Thrive. We have shared about support systems, having those healthy relationships, belonging, and student well-being. We touch on all of those in our strategies. And then Pillar 3, Prepared and Life Ready, we have focused mainly on real-world skills, career exploration, applied learning, and future readiness. Those are all things that came up through that survey, and we addressed them directly in the strategic plan. So, I know you all have been part of these things where sometimes we take those surveys, we have these activities, and where does it go? Where's that information? This tells, when that strategic plan goes out to the community and our parents, if they are one of those people that answered that on the survey, they can look at that and say, wow, it did mean something. I answered that and they listened, along with many other people that had those same responses. So we directly responded and acknowledges those barriers that we needed to focus on in the plan. And they're directly in that. But we do have pieces that we haven't yet added to the plan, and that goes back to that operational strategies. So if you look to the next page, there is some data on there, and those are specific to the community survey in regards to questions 9 and 10. And these were the questions that were solely centered around the work that falls under your purview. And so if we're looking at question 9, you can see a top area, the absolute top contender here, was staffing shortages. That was one of the most pivotal operational areas of needing improvement that the community said we need to focus on. Then we have some other, large ones, food service, basic needs, pantry services that we could provide. Other ones are technology, access and effective use of that. And we are addressing that in different manners. Like I said, we just talked about the screen time. So those are some of the most vital things that you all have a lot of the control to assist with. And then additionally, we talked a lot about improving communication and transparency. And the reason that question was specifically put on was based on the conversation we had at the board retreat. We had lots of dialogue around the vital need with having that transparency. We needed our parents to trust the educators in the classroom to trust, administration, board, and all the way back down. And so this was largely focused around that. And the top thing that came back on that survey was clearer expectations or decisions. The really fantastic thing is we now will have a beautiful strategic plan that addresses and makes that crystal clear in a digestible form. So we have so many things that are going to hone in here. More communication from teachers. That was huge, communication. And I know some teachers in the classroom may say I'm communicating as much as possible, but maybe it's meeting them and communicating in the way that is the easy way to digest. We had that conversation. So what that brings over here on your left-hand side of the paper is those top supported areas that you all really have the greatest support in. That's staffing, capacity, and recruitment, right? We know that you all can help support that. That's shortages, that's support, and ultimately that's retention. We've had lots of discussion about the need of retaining those qualified, high-quality educators. resource allocation and financial stewardship, budget priorities, equitable resources. We've had a lot of conversation about making these opportunities equitable. And long-term funding, which I know is just unbelievable to think about that with all of the constraints you all are under currently, but we do know that we have to be those stewards of those financial responsibilities at the best of our ability. Of course, facilities, safe learning environments, right? That is something that we can help support, which you ultimately are doing. You know, we have the Eastview project, but those are building conditions, safety, facility planning, and learning spaces. Looking at spaces and saying, are these the most conducive for our students to learn in? What can we do to enhance or add to that? Transportation and student access. So this is access to those new opportunities we may be affording them. Those experiences. Do we have those structures in place? We know, bus driver shortage. We all know that that is a real problem. If we offer these new experiences, can we help support that transportation needs to make that happen? Systems in place. We would lean into, if that's something we focus on, we of course would lean in with Daryl and ask, do we have those systems in place to help support you and your drivers at the best of our ability? What else could we do? And that all along goes with reducing any barriers that may come back that we have there. This has been a huge topic of conversation, but that's the technology and data infrastructures. And are we able to maintain, stay up with where we need to be? So this would be access to effective systems. We may be looking at systems that we currently have and say, is there a better use? Can we look elsewhere that we would want? And ultimately the infrastructure that we have in place. Can we withstand, the things that we need? Those are all things that ultimately, if a decision was made, it's going to come back to you all. So you all support those areas the most. Student support, resources, and basic needs. Like I said, that came back in the survey. This was food pantry, wellness support, student services, and just general basic needs. And we know those are there. And we know that they are there in every classroom. We can only do what we can do here, but maybe there are infrastructures and procedures we could put in place to make sure that we're prepared when those come down the hatch in the classroom. Communication and transparency, we talked about that, but that's those clear expectations. District communication, that's been a huge thing that we want to make sure that there is a clear, concise, uniform communications when they're going out, and making sure that we are having that start at this level and how we support it. Community partnership and engagement. This is one of those also top items that came back on the survey of having families engage. We know we've all been part of those, great events at the elementary spaces. Sometimes, you get those same faces over and over again. We want everybody to feel engaged and to participate in that. So how could we do that? And then also business and community partnerships. This is huge, especially if we want to produce that well-rounded portrait of a graduate. How can we, as a board, dive in and say, how can we get new advanced partnerships? How can we lean into some of the existing ones we have? What can we do to support that? Give them these new pathways and these opportunities. So that's something we want to keep in mind as we build out these strategies. Long-term planning and sustainability. This is future planning. We know, again, I don't have to tell you how hard that is with the current climate, but we want to do to the best of our ability so that our students, our parents have that stability in the corporation and how we can do that. And then ultimately, operational systems and efficiency, that's where we would potentially look inward and say, do we have a system in place that's just not working the best for us? Is there something we could, as a board, look at and say, we are going to tackle this focus because it will bring more efficiency to a procedure, a policy, an infrastructure we have in place? And those are those big buckets. Those are those strategy areas that we want to lean into to pull up your focus for each one of the pillars. And we know, we have went through it in the lens that we have already. We haven't touched on those in the way that you all can with what you're looking at in the draft. The draft strategies that you're looking at are rooted in the classroom spaces. Those are our educators that are touching those students directly every day. But we know they can't do that to the best of their ability by themselves. So we need that additional strategy of the support of you all to be able to make that happen. And so when we get to the drafting point, I want you to think about, this is what we're doing in the classrooms. What can I do to ultimately advance this pillar? If our pillar one is for our students to grow and achieve, how do I do that from where I sit right here? How can I support this great work that's happening in all these other strategies? What can I do? And so we're going to walk through that, but this is the area, the board-supported areas that we still need to address and get in our strategic plan. Talking through all of that data, and I know that's quite a lot, does anything stand out as just a top item as you're looking through that?
Clear explanations of decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I've been in this corporation a long time, it's like, I think current administration is doing a much better job of that, but I think it's been like, either the public wasn't as interested, and perhaps because of all the other stuff that's happened in the last few years, particularly with funding and the legislatures coming down on things, on education very, very hard and politicizing it. Education has gotten more airtime, and not necessarily in a positive way. You know, your test scores are terrible. It's been incredibly negative kinds of things that have come down. And I think that it makes it incumbent on us to make sure, and I think we're trying very, very hard to accentuate the positive and show people that, yes, we have these challenges, but it's not going to be, it's not a quick fix. It's not the light switch. We have to have policies and procedures that are going to help build on and get us to where we need to be, because clearly we are not there. And there have been instances in the past where even board members weren't sure of, we were just kind of handed things and said, here, this is what I want. And as elected officials, I think it's really important that we take a more proactive way. Leslie does a lot with the legislative things in ISBA. I think we all need to be more aware of the entire climate so we can address these things. You know, somebody says, well, this is what you're doing. No, we're not. But what is it? Dr. Phil used to say it takes 10 attaboys to take care of one bad review, and it just takes one thing on social media.
Absolutely.
And I think we're doing a better job, but I think it's really important that we let the public know what we're doing, that we're working hard, and we really do care about the kids.
Absolutely. I think the first step of that is exactly what we are doing right now, is setting forth this strategic plan. That is saying we have these main focuses. We may not be doing them to the best, of our ability. We can do better. We're setting forth these goals, and it means very much to us to go through this process and have this strategic plan. So you're doing the first step of this, absolutely, which is exactly what the survey data told us was wanted. They want that direction. They want to see that uniformity across the corporation and where you all are heading.
I kind of thought about that. I saw the same, because of course that was the greatest response to that question. The next one down, more frequent district or school updates. Yeah. I know when Jeremy was hired, when we got his packet, all the applicants gave us a packet. Jeremy obviously was good at marketing. So that was, and with the reduced enrollment, that was one of the things I think that spoke to us when he was hired. And I think he's already done a lot of that, more frequent district or school updates, absolutely, at least on social media. Of course, that's the only way to reach parents, unless, I know, I can't remember what it is, Jeremy, and forgive me for that, but I know you're talking with, because I saw Kate Thurston and putting together a magazine, something like that workshop we went to, which is, that won't be social media, that will be to households,
yeah, 12,000
right?
doorsteps, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just telling the good news of our people, because it's
right,
it's all focused on humans.
Right.
And the people that do the work, yeah, so which is really fun.
Right, because I feel like that, so I feel like our role in this is not as much what we do, but who we direct or where we want to see that emphasis. Is that
absolutely
accurate?
That's right, and you are the support of this plan.
Yeah.
There may be things that are being put into motion at the administration or, the school level, but ultimately you have to be the ones behind the scenes supporting that. And in most cases, you are making those decisions or signing off on those. And so it may not be the actual pen to paper of doing those actions, but it's the support that's needed to make them happen. That is the role that we want to pull up in these operational strategies. Because at the end of the day, they don't happen without that support. And I want to remind you, this is something that came up that was so vital as we went through. We had talked about having a fourth pillar that was all around the board support. But then as we look through this, it was, we can't advance pillar 1 independently without the support of the board. We can't do pillar 2, we can't do pillar 3. That is where this decision to root an operational strategy supported by you all under each pillar, because ultimately, they are not able to advance without the support of you all. Absolutely. Great point, Leslie. Anything else just around kind of that board support? We are going to shift to an activity. You know, I love these white sheets and all of my markers here. We're going to shift over there, but I want to go through a few other pieces in the packet before we take a pause in it, just to make sure that we have the complete continuity of the plan and know where we're going before we go to this exercise. So the next sheet, if you wouldn't mind turning to, is bringing the plan to life. This is where it's all coming together of how we are actually going to advance this. This was a large discussion of the directional team of, you know, we've got this, but how does the actual work happen? We've got these beautiful statements, but where does the work come from? This strategic plan establishes a shared corporation direction while empowering each school to determine how the work comes to life for its students. Schools will identify goals, action steps, and success measures aligned to the district pillars while maintaining flexibility to meet the unique needs of their own students. This was vital in the initial conversations of, and if you're privy to some different strategic plans, sometimes you see them where the corporation has set forth those goals and the actions that are going to make it happen at the top level. Most times when that happens is you lose that connection and buy-in when it goes down to the school level. We have so many different unique schools in our corporation that it's very hard to mandate these goals and action plans from the top level. That is why you're not seeing those very rigid metric-based goals rooted in our strategic plan. They're coming, and I'm going to show you a version of that here in just a second, but we want them to happen at the school level. We want them to be unique to Little Spartan, just like it's going to be unique to the Career Center and all of our elementary spaces. So that is very vital in the process as we go through. We have that district direction. That is the strategic plan. We're saying as a corporation, this is what means the most, and we are all going, this is our Northern Star that we're all moving towards. How we will know we're successful at that. That would be when district priorities and strategies are consistently reflected across schools and school improvement efforts. We can look around and say everybody is moving in the same direction to advance our strategic goal. That's that top level. Then we take it down to the school action planning. We're going to look at an example of this next. But each school is going to identify the work that will create the greatest impact for their students and their demographic. And then how we will know we're successful with that is that schools have established work groups, action plans, independent goals, and have success measures aligned to each pillar. When you all have those wonderful presentations in front of you at every board meeting from all of our schools, we want them to share those just as they are, but we want them to say that this is aligned to Pillar 1, Strategy 2. This is how we are supporting this. We want all the work, because there's tremendous amount of work that's already happening. A lot of this isn't going to feel like something added on, but this is making that connection of I'm doing this in my spaces, in my schools, and it's advancing the corporation's mission as a whole and our strategic plan. So that's how we will know that we're successful at that action planning. Monitoring progress. This has been a lot of conversation. Leslie, you've been fantastic about keeping that in the back of all of our minds of how do we track this? How do we make this measurable? How do we use this for criteria, for feedback and evaluations and things like that? So in regards to what that will mean, that schools will monitor and adjust progress toward their goals while the corporation and school board regularly review and support the advancement of the work. We want this to be common language and conversation about where we are moving in our action plans. How we'll know we're successful is if we're getting those regular progress updates, annual reviews, school board touch points, just like I shared. I hope they're always coming in that wonderful manner, and data-informed adjustments that may need to occur throughout this process. We want to make sure that it's conversation. This isn't a document that we put out and we say we're not going to look at it. It's set in stone. We're going to say let's have conversations. How's it going as you're adjusting and adapting this in your schools?
Just like at our last meeting when we had the presentation by the Project-Based Learning Group, And they talked about how attendance has improved, like that's a data point. And that's just incorporated, that's, must be one of their internal goals, was to improve attendance for those kiddos. And so exactly what you're saying, Lauren, it's not like they're having to do something extra, they're already doing it, but just presenting it in a way that it all kind of fits together.
Absolutely, and it helps them and I know it feels like, I was on the other side of this many times before, it feels like sometimes that it's being asked for more, but when they can find that relatable piece, it also dually helps them internally. They have a metric base that they can use in regards to evaluation and criteria is just the same. They are able to track their own growth based on it. So it's helping the corporation at the level and internally for themselves. But a lot of this is not going to be new. There is going to be lots of new creative fun things, but, and I think it came up, Leslie, we had the conversation of how do we make it not feel like we're telling them more work.
Right, and Carly was the one who
Yes.
said, we're already doing all of this.
That's it.
It's just communicating it.
Absolutely. And it's making it universally known. We talked about this, that we have phenomenal things happen at Eastview. We have phenomenal things at Fayette Central in all of our spaces, but do we all know about those things? Have we shared those broadly? Is there a best practice we can adapt and take over? Putting it all out there universally allows our educators to do that and lean into those resources that are already in place that they may not know about.
Also, and I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but every school has a different demographic.
Absolutely.
Okay? Every school has a different group of kids. And they have their own sets of challenges. When you say each school sets its own things within parameters, I guess I'm fearful of a competition. Look what I'm doing and you're not doing, and you're not playing with the same hand. Not everybody's dealt the same hand. And I've worked in a hybrid forever. And middle school is a complete hybrid to everything else in education. And the data and all the research says that, and my practical experience says. So if, I like the idea, obviously, of having certain, but are we going to build in the flexibility? Because what is going to be considered progress in one situation may not be considered progress in another.
Absolutely.
And I think this is I'm on the Head Start board, and a lot of things, we had children that came into Little Spartan Preschool at age 3 that were essentially feral children. They did not have the skills. They have worked incredibly hard to bring these kids up, and they're still working on it. It's fantastic the work they do. But to have the expectation that these children will be able to hit the growth parameters of other children that got a better start is kind of unrealistic, because you can't catch up 2 years or 2 or 3 years in one. It's just pretty well impossible. And I'm not sure how the dynamic of this is going to work.
Yeah, and a great point, Ann, is that there is no comparison between, and this is why we want them rooted in the school. No one knows their demographic and students more than the educators, the administration that are leading those schools. That's why it's not top down with those set forth, because what works in one is not going to be applicable with funding constraints, educators, all of those things that you notated on. So there's never a comparison, but we have that belief that they know their students the most and they know what they are capable of. So what will come up in their action plan is what is the most conducive for themselves and their students.
So we're putting, with top-down management, I think there was a problem with trust. Somehow people weren't trusting people to do their job, and it's not a one size does not fit all. And I think that had been the focus a lot of times previously. Here's a program, it fits, this is what it's supposed to do. Well, if you have a particular group of kids, it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And you have to, as a classroom teacher, you start out with plan A, and by the end of the school year, you better be to plan Z, or you're not going to be terribly effective.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to look at an example of how that would possibly be managed to kind of suffice and make sure that you are able to look and analyze yourself, not comparison to others on your plans and your goals. I won't go through all of these. We talked over a large part of these plans, but this success, and I say that my success at a school is not the same as another, growth is success, and that is what we are looking for. At the school level, those action plans, they're going to be self-managed at that school level. Of course, we have that oversight and we have that knowledge, but this is where they are measuring their success. They're identifying and measuring their own success. Annual review. We want this to be something we look at every single year, internally and at the board level. We want to get that feedback. We want to see those growth measures that are associated with it, and use that if there are refinements needed. Maybe a school says we set forth this action plan, but we found that we are just not able to accomplish. We come back to the drawing board and we have that conversation. And then ultimately, we want to look at that long-term impact. We know that this is going to give us priorities that are reflected across all schools. We're all moving in that same direction. We have that alignment between the action plan and the outcomes, and we can see that in our physical schools. And ultimately, the portrait of a graduate will be reflected in all of our graduates. That is what we are moving towards. The next piece that you have in here is a sample where I have an Eastview kiddo, so I pulled out Eastview here and gave you a little bit of an example here. But this is a sample of an action plan, and this is the metric-based growth that we want to live at every school in the corporation. We want them to pull out a focus on every pillar. So for example, that we're looking at, let's say that Eastview is diving into tackling one of the strategies around expanded opportunities and experience. They're going to set forth a goal to engage students in learning experiences. They're going to set action steps, implement one school-wide enrichment experience each quarter. I know they're already doing that because I'm able to experience that with my kiddo there. Increase project-based learning opportunities. Maybe that Eastview says they want to have a higher focus on that, and then they want to invite guest speakers and community partners. Those are their action steps that they are putting forth that they are going to dive in. Next thing you're going to see is what, loosely coined a strategy lead. We are going to say that your individual is the best. We want you to lead this work. So we have a couple of the fantastic Eastview educators as those strategy leads. They're not responsible solely for that work, but they're going to be that internal lead of this project. Then they built out success measures. They're going to measure themselves on the actual number of enrichment experiences that they're able to offer. They're going to measure themselves in student participation, and they're going to look at that data. And that could simply be a sign-in sheet, right? Who's coming to our events? Are we yielding more results by the actions that we're taking? And then ultimately, teacher and student feedback. They want to ask the students and the teachers what's working, what's not working. And then we set a timeline to that. And it is, it's not 3 years from now, it's a 1-year turnaround. It's an academic year so that they can work towards those goals. And of course, and I won't go through each one of these, but we have that for each pillar here, where they would make that action plan that lived behind it. And of course, we have that review process that they will use as they move through this. And once we get through and we accomplish those goals, we would want to set new strategy leads to bring some new ideas in and new goals that we're setting forth with those metrics attached. And that's what we want to live in the behind the scenes. That's what we talked a lot about with the directional team. That this isn't the front-facing document that we share out in that beautiful packet, but this is the work that lives enrooted on every school that we have. We want Little Spartans to have their action plan that's applicable to their students, the Career Center. But this is all bred out of the work that's at that school level, not being given to them top down.
And there could be a world that exists where these are consistent across kindergarten classrooms.
Of course.
Across the district, to your point, Ann, I think that's important. I think that consistency is important because we've done that with curriculum, right?
Yeah,
that way we have
obviously.
mobility and movement and such. But I do think it's okay to say from the district level, well, with the help of our teachers within that grade level, to say what does this look like? And if it's implement one school-wide enrichment experience each quarter, then we could do that at every kindergarten classroom across the district, right? And that's a goal. So, yeah. Do you agree, Kim?
Mm-hmm. So the thing of it, if somebody tries it, and I think one of the things with staff development, we always learn better from other people that were doing the same thing that we were. So what works what works in one classroom may work in another, and it's like, I didn't think of that. We used to have a program called TESSA years ago, and it was really good, because we went into high school, middle school, people had to go into elementary school classrooms. I learned a lot from Bridget Harvin on how to tweak a few things. And I think that this kind of plan would lend itself well to that. If Eastview said, hey, this really worked for us, and Everton says, oh, well, wait a minute, we could maybe do something like that ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I think we learn best from what we found works with our kids.
Absolutely. Anything else, as anything that's came to mind as we kind of walk through the totality of the plan and then putting action behind the plan, what that will look like? Okay, I'm going to ask you to pause there in your packet. We're going to pick back up the last few pages, the last few moments we have together. But if you would like, actually, if you want to turn back to the areas that still need to be addressed where the data is supported, we're going to use that to kind of walk through an exercise. And I know I usually partner you up and do all those fun things, but I'm going to let you stay seated. And we're going to talk through this collectively. So I'm going to make my shift. This,
Are we in here?
yeah. And this, yep, you have it. Okay, perfect. This one? Yep, perfect. You can use this as a resource. Now, I want you, gosh, it probably would have been our last work session. We went through an exercise. I think we had a healthy competition on handwriting and all kinds of fun. I think that was what was going on when we broke this up. People were shielding their sheets, all the things. But I asked you how... We had a little bit of competition there. How may you all support these pillars in the best of ability? So I pulled those main topics that kept coming up, and we're going to break them down a little bit more. And then we're going to come back in, and we are going to do the lovely dotting system. And we're going to pick those top two that we're going to then take in to get to that final stage of the operational strategies. So we're going to focus on just pillar one, which is our grow and achieve here. Let me get one that you all can see here. So one of the biggest things that came up as everybody took their turns around was staffing capacity and recruitment. So if I ask you if that would bubble up to be one of our top focuses, what are some of those concepts, some of the things that would be the most supportive that you all could do in regards to staffing capacity and recruitment? And you can think back of similar situations that may have came up in the past. How do you support making sure that we have staffing at the capacity that we need, and also recruiting those educators in the corporation?
Well, one thing that came to mind under recruitment was supporting the Career Center Educational Child Development, I'm not sure what it's called, track, and try to have some of our own come back to us. So, what's that?
Grow your own.
Yeah, grow your own kind of thing. So, and I don't know how we as a board support those programs, but except to say that's a priority for us, and if the numbers aren't good in that program, I don't know currently, what can the high schools do to promote that? And can we do something flashy like marketing to get students from all the schools interested in that program? That's kind of where my brain goes on the board level, not us personally, like.
I heard something that you just pulled up. Marketing is a huge piece. We know that you all can help advance that recruitment piece through marketing. Well, while you are not pen to paper creating those beautiful graphics that we have, but you are supporting that. How can we appropriately market the corporation as a whole, right, to draw that attention as we go through? What else comes to mind? And we're just going to spend a few minutes on each of them, but what else comes to mind in regards to staffing capacity?
I think having a good relationship with the union and having a good contract, having those kinds of things that we can, our starting salary and our benefit piece. I think that is incredibly important, because there's just not a lot of teachers out there, and we are sitting in the middle of a cornfield, and we cannot offer the kinds of things for a beginning teacher that they can if they go to IPS or some of the other big schools. But we have other things that are good things about living in a smaller town. And I think that that's difficult, is you want to make a lot of money, but if you live in Indianapolis, it's going to cost you a whole lot more.
But
here's
but there's a huge point in selling ourselves, right? We may not offer those things, but we can sell the opportunities.
One other thing, and I know a lot of it just depends on finances, and that's where this is kind of a bump in the road, but we talked at our executive session, we have a lot, and not to bring that into the public meeting, but we have a lot of teachers on emergency licenses. How can we support them in getting their academics behind them so that they can get their teacher license? I don't know what we do, but I'd like to see them feel like, admin and the board is excited that they want to come into teaching. So how can we support them in that?
And Leslie, that brings up a great point here in regards to just this, licensing and credentials. We may not know how to solve it or what we're going to do, but you can prioritize that we will focus on that. And we will figure it out of how we can best support it. But if this would be something that you all stand on as vital, we would figure that out. We would root it in those action plans. You don't have to have all the answers as we are going through this at this point.
I think one thing that's really important for you as a board is that culture starts at the top, right? And so a culture of affirmation and care and appreciation for staff
Yeah, that's a good
starts
point.
with you as a board, right? Also, like I've heard many times in my career, like, that district's a mess. Have you seen their board meetings? And that permeates itself into everything. And I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm getting out of there." Like but that starts at this level, right? And so I think a professionalism, a way of going about the work that
Does that go under other?
could.
Is that under staff recruitment? And
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
either
I think it's
or.
why
I'm just
staff
thinking,
stays.
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
They
that's a
feel,
good
they
point.
feel
Yeah.
like there's that comfort in
And
knowing
their value, and that they're
the
valued.
that they're valued and
Yeah.
that there's.
Right.
And that you're an anchor, right?
Yeah.
To the work that they're doing.
That's great.
Absolutely. So then if we're shifting down to resource allocation for learning priorities, does anything jump out? This was in some of the conversation, is just making sure that we're allocating the things that mean the most in our learning spaces. Does
Just
anything?
finding those grants and our grant writers
huge.
that we already have that whatever might be out there.
Kim's working on one now.
Huh?
So Kim's working on one now.
Yeah.
Anything else jump out for resource allocation?
With learning priorities, if we set ourselves a priority and of improving, for example, of improving test scores, particularly math and language arts, particularly math test scores, are we supporting those, how do we support those things that are going to allow our students to do that? And it might be more money, it might be more resources of any kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
If our goal is to improve our test scores, then we need to do everything that we can to support those that are working on doing that. Even, it may take a little more money. We may have to shift a few things.
I think with that, Anna, a healthy level of accountability for us is good, really good. So if we're going to say that learning and growing is important, then you hold me accountable to that standard, and then I, of course, hold
That's a really
others
good
accountable
point.
to that as well.
So is that is that like superintendent evaluate? I mean, is that,
It's just accountability.
or
Yeah,
superintendent?
it's just,
and
that's accountability at all levels.
It's
where-
standards, right?
Okay.
It's,
Expectations.
it's not just because just because our free and reduced rate might be high, doesn't mean kids can't achieve, right?
Right.
It's those standards, but also with grace and understanding of situation and circumstance. But having those standards, I think, of accountability
That's
is
really
important.
good.
Absolutely. If we're talking technology and infrastructure, specifically around instructional pieces, does anything jump out in regards to technology and infrastructure?
Implementing the new policies that have been put forth by the state, and also following the trends as to removing the things from K-1, getting kids off screens, and getting rid of cell phones.
All of which are in the works, right?
No, and it's legislative, but I think it's important for the corporation as a whole to set the tone. Is like, why are we doing this? Because particularly taking away the screen time, we found out screen time it's not the panacea that we thought it was. And if we learned anything from COVID, it's not good for the little ones. And we've learned the hard way that the interruptions that are caused by the cell phones and the social media stuff for high school kids is also pretty destructive.
Did you get that faulty chair there?
I love that.
I think we found it now.
We also, we did, all of our school, I don't know where our schools have Wi-Fi, but when we did that through COVID, is it just at the high school, outside of the high school, or is,
We did it on all of them. We had
Okay.
outside access to all the buildings.
and that still maintains?
It will not be renewed.
It will
So
not
those
be
licenses are very expensive, and we use
Okay.
a lot of ESSER dollars to do that.
Right.
So unfortunately,
So
those will not
that's-
be renewed. I don't know how often they're
And
actually
really, it
used.
wasn't used, I
It
mean, like, we
wasn't.
had the MiFis available for them to sign out, and we didn't have hardly anybody
Okay.
sign them out.
How about the E-rate that Terry goes after every
Oh,
year?
sure.
Is that, and, I mean, he just does that, but if the board is supporting that as a way to reduce costs, but
Sure.
keep our technology, it's called
E-rate.
E-rate.
Right?
And it's us,
Poverty-based.
right, and it's, are we grouped with others? Like, do you have to group with others to get a better deal, or no?
It's
That's
just on
not
our
like
free
the
and
other-
reduced lunch percentages.
There are certain categories of projects that you can take on with that money, and essentially they'll pay for a percentage based upon your threshold in terms of free
Okay.
and reduced rate.
Yeah, so continuing to support that.
Absolutely. What about our facilities? This is obviously at your forefront as you're walking through that, but how do we, as a board, look at supporting, enhancing, making sure they're conducive, our facilities that are able to support our students growing and achieving?
So when we started the whole facility study, one of the things we learned was that noisy heating systems or fans that are blowing out by students were distracting, they were cold, they couldn't concentrate, they couldn't hear in certain parts of the room, so I don't know what that title would be, but
Building conditions in general, making sure our
Yeah.
buildings.
The number of electrical outlets that are in classrooms when you had kids plugging in computers and all that kind of thing. We needed to update our electrical infrastructure of almost every building. So when all the computers were running, we didn't blow transformers, which happened. And then we had no electricity in a building for 2 days.
So updating that infrastructure
Yeah.
in the specific spaces.
And I think also the things that we have done at Frazee and the things that we are doing at Eastview are example, and the things that actually we did at Everton too. We've had a plan to do that since we had, how long has that plan been around, Leslie? When did we first do that?
the facilities
Yeah,
study, like 4 years ago?
About 4 years ago.
Five,
Yeah,
five,
so-
5 years
It
ago.
was 5 years ago?
That was 2 years before Jeremy got here.
Yeah, so we started this 5 years ago when we got that document, when we had Gibraltar come in and say, okay, here's all your buildings, here's all these little things that need to get fixed. And we set priorities of that, and I think we've done a really, really good job of that.
So tonight is not about this conversation, but I think building inventory and looking at where you put your money and the community's money, I think is really important here. Because if decisions are made that empty the coffers, right, there's not adequate money to put into other buildings that may need that. And so I think that is an important charge of the board as well as we look at what's next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Tough one.
Yeah.
absolutely. So what about operational support for the schools in general? We had a lot of just overall general conversation. What are things outside of some of those larger buckets? What comes up, and the conversations that you're having with these educators in the space? What are you hearing that is needed in those spaces in regards to operational support? And this may be, and I don't want it to sound trivial, but it may be, we don't have enough classroom supplies. How am I able to do that? What are those things that you're hearing? And that's vital, right? Our students have to be able to have that pen and paper, and they may not have that coming from home. How are those operational things coming up? What can we do to support those basic operational needs? They may not be the huge infrastructures, but they're vital to the process no matter what.
The new copy machines. No, seriously, the new copy machines that we put in I don't personally like them because they run more slowly, but in the long term, particularly if you don't have to run a lot of copies, they are much more efficient, effective, and we can run color copies, so we do not have to farm that out. And I'm assuming that they were less expensive,
Significantly.
significantly less expensive, so although I make a lot of copies and I don't like them in the fact that they don't work as fast, in the overall picture, they're saving, there's, the money saving is, that's something you can learn to live with.
I don't know if it goes here, I can't remember,
We'll
but
find home for it.
utility costs, I know Jeremy has looked into the natural gas co-op, or I don't know what
Yeah,
you
you
call it.
approved that.
Yeah, is it a co-op or?
It is a
yeah,
co-op,
Yeah,
yes.
so and you had talked to Duke, that's different, yeah, and you had talked to Duke, so like just,
We're working on some rebates right now for some
right,
energy savings.
looking at utility.
Fiscal responsibility in
with-
large.
Yeah, but focused on the utilities, because we're
Yeah.
switching to LED lights.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's-
we're chunking that as we go.
Right, and so all of those things should reduce our utility costs, right?
Oh,
All-
significantly.
Yeah, so,
And we're also, Daryl has done a really good job of buying things in bulk, where each school was, basically had its own thing. Now we buy them in bulk. He keeps them in storage for us, and then we have a one central kind of thing, rather than each school being involved in ordering its own paper supplies and things like that.
So organizational efficiency.
Yeah, much more efficient.
As we're looking at all of these kind of big focuses that came up in our previous work, anything else to add? Does anything jump out that we didn't touch on that is rooted in the support that you all provide at the board level to advance Pillar 1, which is growing and achieving for our students? Now, I'm going to call myself a liar in this. I'm actually going to get you all up to do these next two. Based on time, I want to be cognizant, but I would love, we'll break out, and exactly what we did as for Pillar 1, I'd like for your group to kind of walk yourselves through in the safe and supportive, just all the way through. Same thing for Pillar 3. Generate a few ideas. What are those things, just like we did, and we'll share those out before we go in and decide. So we will count off. We'll do 2, 3. We won't have a 1, so we can stay aligned. So Jim, I'll let you count me off with number 2.
2,
3.
2, 3, 2,
2, 3.
2.
Okay. So, Pillar 2, I'll spread these out a little bit.
say one.
I didn't know. She tagged out on that one.
Nice try.
Pick your color that you want. We're gonna take about 7 minutes, 5-7 minutes, and then we'll talk through these, and then we're gonna collectively kind of decide what are the top ones that bubble up. I'm gonna move Pillar 3. Let's put you a little more space. We'll go over here behind you, Kim and Jim over here. All right. Okay. No competition, but we'll see who's got the list
Best
going here.
handwriting.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Here you go, Dustin. Oh, who's writing on these first? Jared, is that you?
It worked over there.
No, you can't be taking Shelley's out.
Twos,
Twos?
twos, on a 2.
I'm a 2.
Okay. Well,
Whatever color you
Okay.
prefer. Bill, single roll.
I didn't know who was with what group, so.
Okay. How to support safe and supportive learning environments.
But I was gonna say with that first one
Along with
was,
Brian, is your pillar.
we already have this, the schools have church partners.
I
But
think we
What
have,
is the chance that schools could have
we have
business
safety
partners that
plans.
also?
We used to have them.
in
And some of them
place.
do.
And also,
We like
we.
4
Well, and
to
some of the
8
churches
is
help
central.
financially,
And
like I
then
think,
Roots was one of them.
doesn't Phillips Church help
All the churches.
Eastviews?
yeah,
They're
all
helping
have.
with some, I don't know if it's snacks or awards or something, but I'm thinking more business, I don't know. That was what I was looking
Okay, anything else?
Our school resource person.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
get a roll now.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, that's great.
I think this is community, is the board sets the perception of the community, because you guys talk to the community so much, like that culture.
You know what I think we're missing? School used to be a fair and
Okay.
handed out
Yeah, they
pencils.
charged us $300.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
Well, can we partner with?
Somebody to pay for that because that was so good, it was before school started.
Some more
Positive
visibility.
experience with law
Yeah, that's
enforcement.
right.
And now they see them in a
Yeah,
different
it started at 300, I
direction.
think it went up to
They
500.
talk to them
They're
as
like, no,
people,
we're out.
and I think that
Because there's
helps
nothing,
deflate
how do we
the
pay for that?
situation.
I mean, what do
Yeah,
you-
we don't
Student
pay for that,
support
I mean, we
resources
can't
and
pay for
basic
that, but it was so good, though, when I sat in the booth and the kids would come up, they were so excited. They talked about where they were gonna go to school.
Okay.
I'll just support you today, so we're just waiting.
Yeah, don't get too close to me, but,
Yeah.
like I said, I wanted to try, but surely I can't use pages. That's all over.
Just in case, you just have to.
Okay, let's go on.
Hopeful, very
Access to
hopeful.
student opportunities.
The only other thing I would think about that, but
This
that
one?
doesn't, no, it's not about
Okay.
preparing.
Okay.
Wednesday play. Opportunities and I think this is like just supporting
about
candy.
The
You guys supporting
programs
initiatives brought in by the schools.
the health assistants are
Like
doing with the.
Project Leads Away or
the
project-based
Summer,
learning.
giving to kids at schools.
The mentor program at the middle school. So
Is it just board support or is it board encouragement of new programs? I mean,
Okay. And
I thought that project-based
they
learning was
have
great.
a clothing closet at Little Sparks.
With that one
They have a
specifically,
clothing closet
what
at
may
the
be a
Work
barrier?
Center.
Maybe not actual opportunities of creating new, but is there a barrier from individuals
Oh, that's the
participating in
access
those
part.
opportunities and experience? Maybe that's
so
something that
removing
could be.
barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not always about
So what's
creating
an
other.
example of removing the
Transportation.
barrier?
Maybe transportation is one, let's say we aren't able,
Oh,
we have these great opportunities, they're already out there, but we don't have
students can't
the,
get there.
absolutely. So how can we do in regards to transportation? That is something that the board is able to dive into.
So it would be.
And that could come in, of course, a slew of different things that are within, but that may
So
be
they would
something you all could
provide
support
an
it by.
accessible experience.
A lot of this too is, we're getting to a point now where if we don't redistrict, we have some buildings who are gonna sit
So what
with
you
28
guys just
kids in
did-
a class and 7 and 12. Well, that limits the experiences
Right?
that a teacher
Yes.
with 28 kids
Building
isn't
more
be able to
skills,
do
yeah.
the same thing as a teacher with 12. I'm already hearing that.
Transportation.
That's why we're stressing on transfers.
One of our huge things
We have
is the
150
lack
plus
of public
transfers. You start moving those around, you start
within
eliminating,
And
you start creating
that's
inequities
not
in
an honest thing
classrooms.
to address,
So
but
do you-
certainly it's
Could be.
something
Is it
that we-
important to put
As we talked about.
equity in
primary
class
care,
size
right?
under
We have
access to
there's
student
something
I think your
about
teachers would say that, I think you're gonna
Okay.
hear that.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think,
So
but that,
that
hearing
is
that, I can
shades
see
at
how that
some
makes
point,
sense.
right? Which is this as well, right?
We have
Family
redistricted,
communication
we're
and
on
transparency.
6 years for
Huge.
redistricting and I can tell,
Huge.
Really?
we're back to
And I think we do a good
all
job
over
of that.
I have
Doing
just
a fantastic
tracked like
job
how
on
many kids are
social
sitting in your
media.
classroom that are truly your kids.
Social media.
It's unbelievable. Most of them are on transfers.
As these
So
two have the
from
most.
board's perspective, you guys started your own.
It's pretty
stuff,
consistent.
right?
Oh, okay.
And it's not
Nobody
sure
really
to do
goes
that.
through homeschooling.
And is it
Grow that,
because
make
of
that
care?
bigger, and,
You
A
know,
lot of it's
Social media,
babysitting,
Facebook
a lot of
page,
it's community
the Whitewater,
perception, a lot of it's, my
all
friends
the
go here,
departments,
so I wanna go
Okay.
here.
Really, really good job.
There's all kinds of
Our
things.
All
board
right.
does a nice job.
Yeah, they do, 'cause they send
But
out
it
the
does
newsletters
really
and
create,
get them
I mean,
every
for
month.
example, you've got Everton,
They get them out to the
who's
parents,
sitting with a
not
class
only
size of
on the
12
social
in
media,
first
but
grade,
also a hard
and I've
copy that
got
goes home in the
Grandview
back.
sitting
There's
with a
the
very
Friday
small
folder
room
that
with a
goes
class size
home.
of 27.
And I
This is,
think
and
And
this is.
as a teacher, when you put them in the same room together and you talk about test scores, the walls come out. It's much easier to get a higher achievement of 12 than 7.
Or if you're gonna do any kind of.
Well, yeah.
And it's not the
Things
fault of
out
the teacher, it's just where the kids.
I don't know that we
live
could have
and
done anything
we have
different
to
either,
teach
but
for
I
a while.
think.
And if we did any project-based
Well,
learning at a
you
younger
and I,
level,
you and I
how do
have
you
had
do
this
that with
conversation
27
about
years?
trust a long
I
time.
mean, you
I
can't.
think it's getting
Or you
better.
can't do
Just
it
like
like
Eastview, they're so
A lot better.
big, they don't
But I
have
think,
room to do anything
unfortunately,
like extra, like their
we
project
had
lead away
a-
has to be on the cart, because they're gonna be extra
Well,
classrooms.
Jared, you were
Where then you
here
go to
because
Fayette
you were
Central,
here
you
a
have
long
5
time.
extra classrooms. So
There
they get
was
their own
a
room for art, for music, for
distrust
all the special, so
of
then the Eastview
a lot
people
of
are like, well, why
families,
don't we get that?
and it
That's
was
those
not,
inequities that
Right.
I
and
hear
school
about.
corporation was not
Right.
very useful.
And
Which
then-
is only way you're gonna, you guys are the only ones
For
that
a
can
very,
fix
very
that.
long time.
Either through
It was considered to
redistricting,
be very
building inventory,
elitist.
class size caps, those kinds of things.
If you were smart
So
enough,
there's
you went to the
also
high
already
school,
a
if you were dumb, you
category
went across the
for
parking
this.
lot.
There's not already a cap on class sizes?
And that's too bad, but that's not,
But
that's
you-
not.
if there's only 12 kids
Teaching
there,
at my
there's 12
friend
kids
is
there.
very, very difficult.
And it's
And
hard
then
to
when you
force
have such an
parents like, hey,
industrial
would
based
you
place,
ever
the
transfer
ones I
to
did
this
4
school
years
because they
ago,
only have
all
12
factories
kids?
were
No,
gone.
my kids have always
We
gone
could
to
make a
this
whole
school.
lot of money without any education.
So, and it
So
changes,
education
one
is
year
specific.
it'll be crazy.
Amen.
One year Grandview, one year
Operational
it's not my
systems
first
that
time
support student
experiencing it.
well-being.
It's hard.
I think we have,
Yeah, that's, that I
That
think
kind
is
of goes
here,
with this.
the barriers.
and we have,
Yeah.
good partners.
So
We
does
have
that
Reed,
mean
we have-
that
We have Reed is
teachers need
huge.
money in
So,
order to do things
Reed's
that are gonna
classroom
help
either
the
should
kids
well,
in the
Well, for
classroom?
example, if you do Project Lead the Way, and you're taking that teacher, you gotta pay for the training, you gotta pay for the materials, plus it adds an FTE to that building. And if you're trying to cut money, where does that money come from? So you have to shift that money from somewhere to somewhere else in order to
Are we
accommodate
switching?
that.
Are we?
We're not, we're just gonna tell, but if you have some input, by all means, feel free, or actually, if you have additional, we're gonna have a share out, and so we'll add it onto it as we do.
I was just gonna
Safety
say,
support
Kim,
Financial
good ideas.
responsibility.
Oh, Kim,
Yes, Kim is really
Where-
struggling.
you wanna say that a little louder, Jeremy?
You can go put your input in.
Safety
Kim, you just missed that one.
support, resource officer.
He's picking on me.
All right,
He said you were struggling over here and asked if he could add to your list.
Stop
we're done.
Again, are
These
there
are a lot of the same
grants?
thing.
Are there
You didn't, oh, you wrote that, okay. It's funny, I didn't see that pen in your hand.
Business support, I keep going back to
Outside school.
outside support. So I need-
I'm not on my A game today.
Whatever you, Chris, whatever you want, please, help yourself.
Not good for a lot.
Technology is ready. I don't see this as an issue for us.
And
You
I
feel like
think we
we're
do,
pretty.
because we do get a lot of E-rate, and we do get a lot of
be involved.
Title I funding.
And when Frazee was remodeled, did they put in,
I don't have that issue.
those types of things to support more capacity that the other
That's
schools
me.
don't?
Yeah, and, yeah.
So,
No.
no, they all have the same.
But that was part of that initial commitment that when we started the 5-year, that every building, if we remodeled, every building would get the same thing.
Right, but right now they don't.
They don't, right, yeah, right now.
And
there
our
is
money
not.
is, we don't have enough money
Yeah.
right now to do all the schools.
As
So,
equity.
equity is in technology, yeah.
It doesn't match up.
Well, within the amongst the buildings.
It's a way to.
I mean, yeah. Well, they all put in a good effort.
No more
Jeremy, I see where the problem is negative, there was Mountain Dew.
No, that's the
Coke, right?
reality.
That's Kim's problem right there. She's
No,
drinking.
actually, that's where we'll get that tattoo on my
Is that
arm.
new? That's why I-
It is.
Jeremy, you
Would
should
you
go.
like-
You know,
Right.
would you like Orange Crush?
Let me tell you what happened.
This is not under
Free
those
today.
other
And they had a lot that was not
So-
there. And today was the last day, so I got a few different things for them to try.
The more cafes you have,
Fantastic.
the more teachers you need, the more special.
I stay away from cold red, it's getting late. so-
That's Tina Smith, actually. Can you believe
And
that?
that all comes to
Tina
this.
Yeah, she drinks the, she drinks the Code Red.
Those people.
She Mountain Dew Code Red, yeah.
Don't she
High
bing,
school
bing, bing,
teachers
bing?
that can teach dual credits.
Yeah.
We'll teach those advanced coursework, one to hard to find.
From the ground.
And if you're gonna pull them, you gotta pull
Yeah,
either
I mean, that's,
having some kind of benefit or money.
it's kind of a given,
So that makes
like you,
super
we have to front load everything.
But we're also doing comparative life training built
Did you
per
get your
grade,
paperwork yet?
you know, like per age. So it's not just at that high school level,
I can't prepare a kid if you don't have.
What's nice is you don't have to
Small,
get another business.
community.
Well, you live in a community.
Right, but what you did, what you guys
Mine
are
is
doing right
incredibly
now
small.
with Amber.
Joanne, I wanted to-
Hey,
The lovely dots, we love
Would you like to
these.
give them like a 30-second
And
warning?
so you are
10 days.
reallocating.
If you're.
Well, they can-
There is no time pressure, even if it's given by Jeremy, I promise
So
y'all.
I think
Wow.
that
I have
that's
no
what
idea.
goes there is
And all those other
reallocate.
things, like I would fill out, like top
Yeah.
page, it's like,
Yeah.
no,
You can
You
push the
know,
button.
I did Bachelor, and he died in 1998.
I put NA on, you know.
Well, I
I didn't-
put
Whenever you are done, no rush at all, I am gonna ask you all to go to each pillar.
I did not, I did
And we have a 2-dot limit.
Right there in the.
Office, I did not.
2-dot limit. That's it.
No, see, those-
On each page.
Oh.
On each page.
Yeah.
I usually don't give you a limit, but we are wanting to bubble up our top 2 as you are looking at each pillar. Top 2. Need some?
Like if
Well,
you
Yes,
have.
I get more of these, you get more.
Yes, we are tackling the orange titles, what that focus area is, what are the top ones for each pillar, the top 2. Is that staffing capacity,
Yes.
resources for yourself?
That's,
Is it technology? What are the top 2 that you feel on each pillar?
I'm,
Well, marketing seems to be
Nobody's
the only thing that,
well, unless you. So we're doing the.
Yeah.
We're doing the majority.
The orange, those focuses,
Most
those,
of the kids.
yes, the orange. The green is kind of the things that we need to dive into to
here's what I'd
advance.
say, like,
That will
that
bring
got a
you
lot,
become the
got a lot of
strategy.
attention,
And my
everyone is
thing
not
is-
gonna use devices, the number
I'm
of
gonna vote
positive
for something.
comments,
I don't
everybody
care.
is supportive. People
I
are saying,
should
why don't
know.
we do
something.
that
I
with
know
the rest of
that, you
elementary?
know, I
think
voted
we
for
could get
Democrats, I
through it.
voted
I mean,
for
we're just
Republicans.
starting and I'm not saying
There
we
have
should
been
rush into
people-
it,
Yeah,
but
but then in there.
My
that
grandfather,
that
who was chairman of the
transition
Republican Party in Jasper County forever, is probably rolling over in his
We're
grave.
not,
But
the
I'm
only way
not
to get those
going
kids
to
to go to
vote
Buster
for
because those parents work.
the
They
sheriff
can't
in
drive
Ryan
all the way
County
here and come back.
when the Republican is.
So the only
Right.
people getting in are the kids who
And
are
Democrat
working
is a
in,
good
or
person.
parents who are working in our communities and helping them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like.
yeah.
I hear you. Oh.
That's, those are the things that have to be strategic.
Okay, what we're gonna do is.
Oh,
This
we're
doesn't
sticking
really
on.
seem
We
to
are-
be
we are
so
dotting.
he's doing
We are
it.
dotting.
So what are we?
You are dotting on each pillar, I'm gonna ask you only 2 dots, what do you believe are the top 2 areas? These, yeah, I'm limiting you for one. These are the orange titles, what are the most important? Don't pressure them over here, please.
But
Excuse us.
No
I
pressure.
want this one.
What are we?
Good.
You want me 2? Top 2, yes. I tried holding.
I said all I have to do is breathe on it, he'll be gone.
Nice, nice strategy. Top 2, you only get 2. You are limited this time, it's hard, you got it?
I don't like that.
Top 2, and if you want to add any context as you're moving along that you may have had as you were eavesdropping on the other ones, or bullying them, you want to take your pick. Wow, it's either peer pressure or we are in definite alignment here.
This one is named after you because,
Wow.
yes, because of
What does it say?
initiatives
Oh,
that make
unique.
FCSC unique, like no K-1 devices.
Oh, yeah. good.
Or like talking to
I like
homeschoolers,
that.
or part-time for kids in homeschool to try to get them in here. That's, because it all comes down to money.
It was best for kids. I did was one of them, yeah.
Well, yeah, but if we had more money, we would do more.
Either have a lot of peer pressure or look at that.
Stick your notes, stick your, what's,
Oh, do you need to hear? Here, sorry.
oh,
I've got all the dots you need.
all right,
Here.
I'll take some dots.
You ran out of dots, you're only supposed to do.
Never, we have more.
We picked two.
Well, here,
Yeah, pick 2.
I
2 on each.
I did different colors.
I trust them, they're going to do 2.
I just did.
Should we count them and make sure we have the right number?
It's a lot of riding, that's all I can do. That's just scribbles.
Scribbles.
Where do you want these at?
I'll take them. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that. I was taking notes.
What's under calligraphy?
Right? I'm so good.
Whoever took those pictures, Kendall took them?
Kendall Frank.
Okay.
Yeah, she did a good job.
She did.
This is something that have code red in there if you mom do
She
code
did a
red.
fantastic job.
It's kind of sad though, because my lab is like 12 years old and like, there it is in black and white.
Oh, that is so cool.
She
I wasn't
just,
tired till I came here.
That is just.
that's our 12-year-old lab.
Okay. As everybody is finishing up with their dots, do we need to count and make sure we only use 2 dots? I think you're doubting our.
Those black and white
Uh-huh.
images like that are so.
That's great when school board members can't count.
Yeah.
It's a great image.
We're not gonna doubt you. Wow, look at
People
these.
are mathematically challenged.
There you go. As we're finishing up, let's dive into pillar 1. obviously, absolute standout, number one, it came up continually, staffing capacity and recruitment. Seems to be the most vital focus that you all as a board could do to support Pillar 1. Right behind it is resource allocation for learning priorities. This most is coming in regards to funding, making sure those resources are available, and of course, just having accountability and standards around that in totality. Facilities that support learning, while we only have a few dots, we know that this is an absolute priority, but it's also things that are already being addressed. So these things don't mean we're not focusing on. And I heard this conversation over here, we do it really well already. We're already focused here. That's great. We want to bubble up those most vital things that we actually aren't addressing at the level that we want to be at this point. My gosh, I am going to have to count this to see, do we have a tie on this one? Okay, we have a front runner for Pillar 2, I think by 1 dot here, of family communication and transparency. Top results on our survey that we needed to have more of that. And I inched out just by 1 dot, safe and supportive learning environments. This had some context around that with safety plans, facility support, and resource officers. It's huge, absolutely huge, and leaning into that. And then tied with that is student support resources and just general basic needs. Making sure that we have the proper paperwork submitted for free lunch and all of the benefits that come with having that on. Health assistant, pantries, food, clothing offerings, all things around supporting basic needs that we can. Huge.
One thing that's confusing about this is that they don't like I look at belong and thrive. So yes, I understand that safe and supportive learning environments help kids feel like they belong and thrive, but I don't know how safety plans and resource officers are part of belonging and thriving.
So then if I would ask you, if you're a student in a space, let's
I'm not saying those aren't important, obviously.
Absolutely. But if a resource officer, what could be the difference for a student feeling like that they are belonging in a space or thriving or having a connection in a space? Could that come in the form of a resource officer that's trusted
Well, yes.
and making them feel safe?
Right.
Or giving them a different perspective of police, and I think
Absolutely.
that is the big one, because some kids will see a police officer and they will just freeze because of.
So could it be also, and I don't even know the answer to this, I don't know how our resource officers are used beyond the emergent needs, but are they in classrooms? Are they leading any clubs? Are they doing, I don't know what all they do.
They're great in terms of relationships with kids, but we could probably look at some structural things that would allow them more opportunities to do that. They're not currently doing that now, unless they're in a structure.
And are they so busy the whole time that they wouldn't, like we'd be adding to their plate?
No, not really.
Because
I mean,
these are folks that are in our building, we already have a contract with the police department or the sheriff's department.
Yep.
So could we utilize them in some additional ways that build a sense of belonging for kids and.
They work with the kids in the timeout room. They're great at lunch. Through all 3 lunch periods, they are in the cafeteria, they talk to the kids, at least at the middle school, they're great. I know the resource officers there check in the timeout room if kids are having a
Yeah, I just didn't know if there are additional things.
stressful situation.
Could be,
Absolutely.
for sure.
And if that is where we land on it, that's what we would dive into. How can we lean into the things that are going to support that we have internally? Pillar 3, prepared and life ready. It looks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we do have long-term planning for future opportunities. Look like it bubbled up. We know there was active conversation over here that usually comes with more funding dollars that are needed for those additional needs. Community and business partnership, that may be, I think that's right behind it. Increased business partnerships, more visibility. Is that more visibility of existing partnerships that we have? Or just more visibility that we are establishing these partnerships?
Both.
Okay, great.
Yeah, both.
Great. Anything to add on, what do we feel with the long-term planning for future opportunities? Do we have the most control over that? Or is there a lot more variables in that to focus on?
Depends.
Well, we don't
making
don't
money.
control a lot of the money.
Yeah.
But I do think, the reason I put that last one down there was because the positive feedback by eliminating devices in K-1 was probably the most positive things I've heard about our school corporation in years,
Yes.
years.
I fired off that very late night Friday email to Jeremy as I saw it coming in on Facebook and said, this is huge and we need to make sure we have this
And
language.
so, you know, we've talked lots of times, what is it that's gonna bring people to us? We have to be different.
Yeah.
And, you know, you looked at micro schools, talking to homeschool parents and trying to find out where they are and how we can help meet their needs. Some of those things don't cost money, but then Kim brought up the point, yes, but if we do attract kids from other communities, we have to have transportation, which is a cost.
Sure.
But still, we could be unique in some way and bring back those kids that aren't here.
I think we have to have our carrots. We have to identify the carrots that are gonna bring the kids back. And certainly, Fayette County School Corporation has a lot of really, really good things on the academic side that nobody else has, that is beyond comparison. So I think we have to look at beyond that to see with our career center, with the kind of things that we offer with our extracurriculars, with our intracurricular types of things, our art, our music, our debate team, our speech team. Clearly, our athletics are huge. This is Indiana, we do athletics. So I think all of that has to be put into this pot to say, okay, this is what we're offering, this is what we have. We can offer this, particularly for high school kids, we can offer this really well-rounded experience if you're interested in all these things. And by the time you get out of here, we'll have you reasonably ready to do well in life.
Absolutely. What we're going to do with this next steps is, and if you all wouldn't mind, go to your packet and I can literally read the room. You all are tired and you have more work and want to get out of here, so I'm going to hustle through this as we go through. But the next steps that we're going to do with this specific exercise is I'm going to take this in, I will work with Jeremy and Kim, and we will pull up those top two strategy areas and craft a statement around it. There will be a survey. I find that that's probably the best way to get your response with a couple different versions of this to get your feedback on what we think after this conversation is the most vital area that we could tackle as an operational strategy, and that will become that fifth strategy under each pillar. Jeremy and I had a conversation today of potentially directly labeling that a board-supported strategy so that our parents, our educators know that this is happening in our spaces and all of that is supported here by this strategy by our board. This is not kind of a split, this is in conjunction with. So that will be coming, the finality of all of our exercises with that. The last piece that we're going to talk about today, just very briefly, you are looking at the current Fayette County School Corporation mission statement. As a little refresher, we looked at this back in July. We had some really colorful responses. The one that stands out the most to me was word salad, right? That was something that came up as one of those things that it just did not align with us at all, even at the beginning of the process. And pretty much the exact same consensus when we brought this to the directional team, much the same of the thought of word salad here. The next 2 pages of what you will see, maybe a little bit, you may have remembered this from very early on, but what you're looking at in the next 2 pages are all the different variations of mission and vision statements that we have across the corporation right now. And this was just a website search. So nothing wrong with any of them, all great information, but you could see the confusion that may send in regards to messaging about mission/vision statements. And we've had lots of discussion of the value in having separate. Do we need both? What does that look like? In actuality, we have the most beautiful, well-written mission statement for the corporation that's coming out in your strategic plan. This is our mission. This is what we believe. This is what we are doing. So when we set that for the corporation, we'd ideally want that in the form of a vision statement. This is what we envision for every student at our at Fayette County School Corporation. And we're gonna have that conversation is going to continue here, but I wanted to get your eyes on just kind of all of that messaging that we have across. That strategic plan already defines all of that for us, and that vision statement is gonna be something that we want to be very simple, clear, concise. Years ago, they were large paragraphs. They're really short statements, and that's what we want it to be. We want it to be that relatable statement. And it's just to capture the future of what we want for our students as a result of all of that work in our strategic plan. So the last brief exercise before we talk next steps, I'm going to ask you now, Kim and Leslie, I'm not going to ask you to duplicate this. You did this in our directional team meeting, but I'm going to ask you to just very briefly, whatever comes to mind, 3, if you flip to the next page, it'll give you some instructions there. Just 3 quick words that come to mind in regards to the vision for the corporation, potentially a statement. What do you feel would be vital for that vision statement? Think to yourselves, if we fully live out this strategic plan, what will be true for every student? Is there a word that comes to mind? What should every student leave our school corporation with? And what do we want our community to know about our graduates that's different, that's unique? Are there some words that best reflect the future we want for our students?
So 3 words or
Yeah,
3
3 words, a
statements?
theme, a statement, whatever comes to mind when you hear that. What words come to mind?
It's our water day.
Okay, all right.
We're going to use this to craft that corporation vision statement. What comes to mind when you think about the vision for our graduates, for our students? What do you feel should be reflected? If you're done, you can wave them. I'll grab them for you. You don't have any overachievers on this one? Oh, yeah, that one's coming. I thought Kristen first. Look at that. Love it. Wonderful. Thank you. Get it? Okay. And you can keep. I don't know if I'll be able to read that right.
Right ones?
Wow, that's like so bright. It almost makes my
You're gonna need-
eyes hurt.
Perfect.
You can take that back, because I already
Thank
have
you.
my
Yes,
filled out.
wonderful. So what we are going to do is, we also did this exercise with the directional team. We're going to take this to craft what that vision statement looks like. So you will also be seeing the draft of that. And this is corporation vision statement. And then we will definitely be having continued conversations of what we are going to kind of tackle with the multiple different versions that we have across the corporation.
Do you believe that everybody should have the same, like that there shouldn't be different ones in all the?
I'm gonna let Jeremy, we have this conversation, I'll let him lean into it. I don't want to give any guidance, but I will let Jeremy give that direction.
Yeah, I think it gets really muddy and messy when you have multiple different targets that you're shooting at. I think as succinct as we can be to what's the purpose of it? The purpose is to communicate what we're after, right? And how do we do that in a way that's very succinct and targeted, and that everyone remembers and understands. I think about like Ball State. I don't know if their true vision statement is this, but it's ready to fly, right? Like that's what you see all the time. Because what's that communicate? That our kids, when they get done after 4 years with us, they're ready to go and do their thing.
Yeah, I love that.
And so my previous district, it was simply the vision was students on the path to purpose. Like we wanted our kids to know and understand their strengths and giftings, like the needs of the world, like where they fit, like all those things. Just succinct and easy to understand and keeps us, so to that point,
love
I
that.
think if we get messy and all over the place, it just muddies the waters. So
Yeah, that was a great way.
Yeah.
There is
I like that.
nothing harmful in everybody having all of these visions. What I will tell you, it doesn't help one unified voice in any way. There is nothing bad or wrong or inappropriate in those. It just doesn't help. If we are saying we're all leaning to this strategic plan, one vision statement unites it. Absolutely.
Jeez, this is so different. When we put together, and I've been around so long, we put together vision statements for years. It used to be in pedagogy speak, and it was like, we had to send ours back one year, it's a long time ago, because the verbs weren't right, and it was horrible. So this is such a different process. We'll have such a living document, as opposed to something that everybody had to work on. You stick it on the shelf, and it gathers dust.
Yeah.
And
What happens is you try to say everything, but you end up saying nothing.
No, and the
Yes.
thing of it is, it becomes totally unworkable because nobody really buys into it.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, y'all, we're at the final stretch here, I promise. So let's talk next steps. I already clarified what we're going to kind of do in regards to the immediate. We are going to, I'll make sure that you have a survey in the form in your email that is going to take this information, we'll synthesize it, and get those board-supported strategy offerings up to you and get your final input. And then we will take that into the review for the final strategic plan. A lot of these steps are going to be happening in tandem because we are down to the wire of this. While all of that is happening, like I said, we are going to be reviewing that final strategic plan language. We're going to be crafting that vision statement with the input provided, and then also looking at that portrait of a graduate in that different lens in tandem with all of those other pieces. For the summer, kind of the focus is now is moving to that design phase. That's why we looked at some of those different offerings. The marketing piece. You all have fantastic marketing sources internally. We're leaning into those and making sure that we have all of those communication materials available. This was something that came up with the directional team of, this is great, but how do we get this out to our parents? How do we get that? It's coming in the form of a good old-fashioned marketing campaign. You know, we want to have this be at the forefront. So that's going to actively be happening during the summer. A board retreat. It's hard to believe that we're going to be on year 2 for this. But talking the board retreat, we have had a lot of things that came up, and I know it may feel that we kind of put them on the back burner, but it was intentional to get all of the feedback and then come back. But in regards to the board retreat, some of the focus, we've had conversation around potentially you all having your own mission statement internally. What do you all stand for as a board member? What is your mission for the board, being a steward of this, the students' education and supporting this? So potential of crafting your own mission statement, separate from the corporation's vision, because they are separate things. And so we will actively dive into that and craft that at that point. And then additionally, we would like to build your own board action plan. Some of those metrics, we've talked about this, I think even in this space of, are there some goals that you all can set internally to hold yourselves accountable to advance this work that supports our educators? So building out a board action plan, like that example we looked at, Eastview, that would be applicable to you all. And of course some other focuses, but that would be some of the things that we dive into for the retreat. And then ultimately in the July board meeting, I don't have that date right in front of me, but we are going to bring the final strategic plan to you all for approval. And of course, we know that's not going to be the first time you have your eyes on it, but we will have it in that beautiful packaging, and we will be at the end of that marketing piece when we bring that to you for approval. And then August, as we kick off the new academic year, that's when we're also going to launch that strategic plan internally to the corporation, but also externally to our community. Because it's extremely vital to make sure that we make this known that this isn't just your strategic plan. This is a community-wide advancement that you need to have those business partners and those workforce partners and our dual credit partners. These is some of our mental health resources. All of those vital things in the community, we need their help to advance it. So we want to make sure that they are aware of the plan, how they can help support the plan, and have some of their insights. So it'll be a launch internally and externally with that. And then after we launch that, then it goes to the school level to start building out those action plans, like that example that we saw. And then I had a meeting with Jeremy earlier, and I shared, a lot of people think this is the work that goes into the strategic plan. But the actuality is the work's going to begin when we have that plan launch. It's going to go down to the people that really can advance it in the school level. And so that's when the work is really going to get fun and dive in, but that's what we're looking at. I know that was a lot, y'all. I see the yawns. I get it. I'm fully aware. I can physically read the room here. I get it. Anything that I can answer, any questions? Thank you all for the tremendous
Thank you,
work.
thanks for your energy. 'cause-
Yeah.
we are.
It's fueled by caffeine, Alani's
Okay,
specifically, but
no,
you know.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. All right, thank you all.
Thanks,
I
Lauren.
appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.
you have something else?
Yeah, if I can, just real quick, guys, a couple things. First of all, I just want to thank Lauren. She made a big sacrifice to be here tonight. I almost gave her a directive not to come, but I'm not her
actually
boss,
tried.
I guess.
Oh, yeah, we did actually try.
I did. Her daughter played tonight. That's reasonable.
Yeah, did it end up getting played, do you know?
Yeah, they had a bus breakdown, a duplicate bus, 2 rain-out delays, and they did play, but it doesn't look like we're advancing.
The Spartan Express is currently stranded in a church parking lot, somewhere
There's a
between here
bus
and.
that's.
Rushville.
I
Yeah,
saw a bus over at Ivy Tech with the,
I think that was a different bus.
That's CDL training.
oh,
That's very normal. Yeah, that's what they do.
That's
CDL.
right.
even though it says Fayette County
Yeah,
School.
it does. It's-
Okay,
Yeah, we do training all the time.
okay, good.
Yeah, transport. Okay, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of
All right.
I know it's late, but I want to, a couple things here really quickly while we have you. Jim, last meeting wasn't here, cash flows, we did send to you. I did have him tweak a few things on here. One of the things he tweaked to play with a little bit was reducing that ed doc transfers even further.
So the one they're getting right now is what it looks like currently. Currently. So then this one will be if we reduce it further. So yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no problem, Jim, thank you for that. I just wanted to make sure you see it in front of you. We're gonna have a meeting with our admin team on Thursday. The entire admin team, we're calling it a finance personnel
Summit.
planning summit. It's gonna be quite a day, I think, as we talk through, technology programs. Are we using all of them? Are we like looking at everything with fine-tooth comb to make sure that no stone is left unturned? But you will see that reducing the ed ops transfer down to 0 will put us in a much more favorable position in our education fund at the end of the year. A deficit of about 400,000 rather than the 1.6 or 7 that we talked about.
Can you point out where I'm to look on
Yeah.
this? Because-
Yeah, so if you go so your certified budget's here.
Which one are we looking at, the
So I'm
first
on
one or the second
education,
one?
the
Oh,
first
no,
one.
but which paper?
The first one.
Okay.
I said, yeah.
Okay.
So this is your fund name on the top left.
Okay,
Underneath that, you have your certified budget, right? That's what you're approved to spend as a school corporation. You see your balance in beginning balance and ending balance in January. The same thing carries across all the way. Now, these are actuals up through April,
bold- the
right?
bold
Because they're
ones,
bold.
yeah.
Up after that is simply projections based upon previous year's numbers.
okay.
And where we think we'll be. So at the end of the year, you can take this number, right, this 6.7, compare that to where you started. That's an ugly differential. That's what
Sure
we're
is.
worried about, right? Because that's directly tied to lost kids. So we have to stem that tide. So you do one of two things, right? You make more, which means you get more kids, that's the only way you do that, there's no other way to do it. Or you spend less, right? And the vast majority of your dollars related to education fund are salary benefits, right? The vast majority. You have other things, right? You have curriculum materials, you have other things are involved there. So those are the conversations that we've been having. And I told you before, and I've said this publicly, that we had hoped by attrition to save 10 to 13 positions this summer. That's a lot. That was very pie in the sky. We're at 7 or 8 right now, I think, that we could eliminate. But our early retirement incentive did not yield the results we wanted. That speaks to culture. People want to be here, that's awesome.
Yeah,
right?
that is
That's
great,
great.
yes,
That's great. We don't want, I told them when I put it out there, I was worried about, like, I don't want anybody to think they're not wanted,
Yeah.
right? So, but that has created a world where we have to look at some things a little differently, right? So we're gonna look at some things on Thursday with our staff and say, are there areas that we can look at and trim some costs and be a little slimmer? So, but, like Jim said, Dr. Summers said, if we reduce our ed ops transfers even further, right?
But does that show it on here?
Except
Yeah,
it shows
so-
the top, I
It
mean,
show, you'll see where it goes from $150,000-ish coming in a month
Yeah. So,
to nothing.
yep, so, on your, if you're on the
Okay,
education
down
fund
there,
side, it's gonna say
7.5%
7.5%
transfer, thank you.
transfer to
Yes.
HOS fund. So you'll see, we started the year in January, 648,000, right? That was because there was a oopsie and a double, because we had missed the previous month.
Correct. That's what
Um,
happened at the end of the year, yes.
Yeah, but you'll see we cut that, of course, why is there not one in February, Jim, do you know?
It's doubled up in January.
So you doubled up in January, that's not December and January, that's January and February together.
Yes.
Okay. But if you take that in half, that'd have been $324,000, right, was the transfer amount.
and
If
then
you cut
we
that in
approved to
half
cut that,
to
yes.
7.5%, that's where you see the 160-ish,
60-ish,
Got
right?
it, thank
If
you.
we would make a decision to cut that to 0, right, and ride it out the rest of the year, essentially what we're doing is we're leaning on the cash balances that we have in our operations account. That's what we're doing.
Which we're hefty.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To get us through.
And operations is on the back. Same thing,
Oh.
same thing, but operations is on the back, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yep, so you'll see the thing, now this one, you're gonna see the transfer up the top because it's a receipt coming into operations.
Coming in as revenues, so.
Got
Right,
it.
it's for revenue. So starting in May, if we were to do that, that would go down to 0, right? So you'll see though, that would take our operations fund cash balance, assuming that everything stays the same, assuming that our payments are the same, assuming we're
It's
making.
not bad.
Salaries stay the same.
Well, I mean,
It's
you're
a
at
little-
1.7,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
you're just
it
flip-flopping
is. Yeah, it is.
essentially your ed to ops
Yeah.
losses. Now, what the good news is that you're still at 90%-ish of cash balance and total expenditures for the year. Your target's 27.
In operations.
So you have some
We're-
super healthy cash balances. The bad news is that's not sustainable long-term forever, right? It's not.
And SEA's coming.
And SEA 1 is coming. So.
That's going to affect operations, not
100%.
that
Yes.
Yes.
education fund.
So we're still trying to determine, based upon Thursday's meeting, what that looks like.
Yes.
Again, this is assuming no changes at all. And I sent you an email, essentially, the $106 more per student we're gonna get in the education fund next year basically offsets with 60 kids lost if we're to continue our trend, fall over fall.
We still lost.
Those are offset, right? So, but this is assuming the 8 positions we're talking about that we're able to do by attrition, et cetera. That's not in here, right? So we've done some math, where are you at? $700,000-$800,000 in savings
Close to
right
eight.
now,
Yes.
right? So even if we decided to change and go, hey, we're gonna cut that to 0,
Yes.
let that ride out a little bit, those savings starting in the month of August, start trending back upward, we can always go back and change that again.
Absolutely.
I hope that makes sense. So,
And the bridge team is working very, very diligently.
they're awesome, yeah.
To get kids,
Yes.
I'm on the one that's trying to get kids back that have left.
Yeah.
And it means knocking on doors and saying, hi, how are you? That's exactly what we're willing,
Yeah,
that's
the team has
exactly what we're
said,
willing.
these teachers have said, we'll do it in the summer. Like,
Yeah.
we'll-
Yeah, I think you could ask other people and you get more volunteers to do
Yeah.
that. I'd be
Yeah,
glad to do
it's,
that.
the people on that particular session of the bridge team have been really, really great. Amanda Sleet's doing a fantastic job.
She's
But
awesome.
give us a list of kids to get in touch with. We'll talk, because a lot of us that have been in the community a long time, we know these people. And perhaps did not agree with their decision to remove their kid to begin with. But also understanding maybe why they did. Say, hey, give us a chance again. We've got a good product.
That's great.
37 associate's degrees, that's saying something.
Yeah,
The work that our
right.
people do. I met with Ivy Tech's chancellor last week, and she said, Jeremy, you don't understand how special this is. This
Yeah.
doesn't happen everywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's
It doesn't happen with every class either.
True,
This
but
was a really good group.
it's a good group for sure. But, okay, the other thing I want to talk about real quick, just publicly to make sure it's out there, is the situation last week at middle school. Just want to give you kind of a play-by-play of how quickly things unfolded. I think it's important for the public to know this. I seriously considered putting something out last week in response, in addition to what I put out as far as the statement, just to make sure that people understood that I feel very comfortable saying that I don't know what our people could have done differently, given the information that was coming in and how quickly things were happening. You know, so what happened essentially was there was a burglary in progress that was on Virginia, which is just a block away, just on the other side of the hospital, essentially from our middle school. that quickly escalated from that to essentially a chase, right? And so that went to that pursuit very quickly. Somewhere along the lines in that pursuit, obviously there was a firearm that was discharged at the assailant. But it was very quickly thereafter that he was apprehended on Indiana Avenue, just outside middle school. So to put that in perspective though, my first phone call was from our SRO, who's listening to this happen live on his radio, on his scanner. And at that time, he's essentially play-by-play, like to me, and telling me, you know, shots are fired. So we got word as a corporation after those shots had been discharged. And from law enforcement's perspective, they're chasing an assailant. Like they're actively involved in this situation that literally is unfolding within a matter of seconds. And I'm talking seconds. And so my first phone call obviously is to Dr. Todd to make sure he knows where we are. Well, in the meantime, obviously they're apprehending the individual. I understand there was a video posted on social media of one of our students. And it's an unfortunate situation. So we have teachers that greet their kids in the hallway and stand outside. And it was a passing period, I should say that. I think it's really important. It was a passing period. And those students were coming into the classroom. She was greeting them as she always does. She has a very large classroom. So the other side of the classroom is where the windows were. And she had no idea of what was unfolding in the street behind her. Because at that point in time, information hadn't traveled fast enough between the parties to call the lockout. It just, I don't know what we could have done differently. By the time, obviously, she realized what was going on, she heard commotion in the room, she went in, obviously, and she asked them to get away from the window and asked them to stop what they were doing. But by that point in time, obviously, the damage had been done. I'm just super grateful and thankful that it wasn't worse, because it certainly could have been. You know, we live in a broken world with broken people who do broken things, and all we can do is respond appropriately. And I feel very comfortable saying that if my own child were in that building, I would feel comfortable with the response that the individuals, the adults that were in the building, that were in charge of and trusted with caring for kids, the steps that we took with the information that we had. So I've said it to people individually. I think I needed to say it publicly tonight, that people can spread that word. If they have questions, please call me. But when things unfold that quickly and information comes to us, and essentially like I'm getting information in real time, trying to relay that, they essentially, what was witnessed on the video was essentially happening at the same time that I'm on a phone call, learning about it in real time, if that makes sense. So
One other thing, the building is never really open to begin with. It's not like anybody could walk in, because all the doors are locked, and to get in through the office, there are procedures to let you in. So there's no imminent danger of this person just walking in the building and brandishing a firearm, because they can't get in. So in that respect, it wasn't on a lockdown in the sense that we had the kids in the classrooms, but it is they were in a safe environment. There was no way that person was going to get entry into the building, because all the doors are locked at that particular point in time.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're right. That secure outside shell obviously was there, and it's there every day, right? Regardless of
Exactly.
circumstance, you know, all of our classroom doors are locked inside of our buildings. All of our exterior doors are obviously secure. We had an SRO present in the building that day who responded. I watched him on video come out that back door as soon as he learned of what was happening. Again, we live in a broken world, but things happen, and I left that day just grateful that nothing worse had occurred. But I can say with full assurance that our people did a really nice job of doing what they had to do given the circumstances of the situation.
Thank you for communicating to the community, just so that they knew as soon as.
Yeah, and I know I heard that criticism a little bit. So honestly, I was at high school that morning, got to the middle school as quickly as I could. Probably broke a few laws carefully if I could to get there. When I got there, the assailant was already in the back of an ambulance. The situation was essentially over by that point, and I got there pretty quickly. And once I made sure that everything was okay, that our people were secure, that all the doors and everything was worked the way that it should have been, I got on my phone, standing in the outside stoop of the building, and sent out my Thrill Share text. I really couldn't have done it any sooner and not neglected my responsibilities as superintendent to keep our kids safe. So I know, again, I heard that a little bit from a few folks who were disappointed by that, but just understand when things are unfolding in real time, just like the police officers, law enforcement, their main charge in that moment is to get the assailant and to make sure that everyone is safe, the community at large is safe. I was in the same mode, and then once I made sure that happened, then obviously I can put that information out to people, and we put a statement out very quickly via Thrill Share, and then later that day, of course, put the larger statement out as well. But just want to thank our law enforcement officers. They do a wonderful job of keeping us safe, and both our Sheriff's Department, our Huntersville PD, great partners for us, and we'll do anything we ask, honestly, to respond and to do what needs to be done for our children. I've not worked in a school corporation. I've worked with really good law enforcement officers in the past, but where the school is truly the center of the community in which we live and serve, and they are truly willing to do whatever it takes to keep our kids safe. So,
And our kids
Are the
remember.
glass panels in the doors bulletproof?
yeah, so I don't want to speak and say every single exterior door has is 3M film is what it is. We have worked on hardening those entryways. I don't know that side of the middle school. I have to do some checking to see if they actually have that 3M film.
They
I think
do
they
on
do.
it.
They-
The shatterproof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and-
okay.
and also too, even in a passing period, there's not gonna be anybody that really close to some of the doors, to be honest with you. It's like, on the Indiana side, you have it going up the stairway, but you also have some distance between the door, and you also have a pretty good distance just to get there. But all of those things have that film stuff on them that you can see out of, but you can't necessarily see in. So-
Yeah, some of that is just decorative on certain windows. The true 3M film is the
It's on all the
shatterproof
Yeah,
that's on those exterior doors.
exterior doors. So even though it was a terrible situation outside, our kids were really safe inside. And
So how many times did you audition one of those to get through, like, I'm thinking, they wanted in, that's,
You would have to, they're supposed to be non-penetrable, you know, it would take an armor piercing, but even that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
it
our
would
kids
have.
were, and
Yeah,
most
we
of our
worked
kids
on
are
that.
gonna be on the second and third floor at that time of day too. So that's another layer as far as safety is concerned.
Sure. Just thankful that things didn't turn out worse. Could have been a bad day, so, ended up being a bad day, just not a really, really
Yeah.
bad day.
Right. All right, well, we don't need to have a motion, so we can send it.
Thanks, everyone.